It looks like we have quite a few people on, so we will get started. We're about 4 to 5 minutes past the hour. Today's webinar is for Resume Building Crash Course, and it's brought to you by ICNA Relief. My name is Saad Siddiqui, as I've already mentioned. I'm a volunteer with ICNA Relief. I'm also the president of ICNA Chicago. And we've done a lot of work just within this community and then throughout the US with ICNA Relief. And this is one of our endeavors. So I'm very excited and I'm glad to invite our speakers, and I'm glad to have all of you as participants this evening. And I very much hope that everyone benefits. I know I will. I have quite a few years of experience in the professional world, but after seeing sort of one round of this presentation already, I've already benefited. So I'm hoping everyone else that's on this call today will also walk away with some new information. I think Fatima Azfar, you have control of the slides. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we have some housekeeping rules. The first one in here is please try to keep your video cameras on, stay engaged. I know some of you are shy. I don't see a lot of people that have their video on. I know we have our speakers, myself broadcasting. If you do feel comfortable sharing your video, we'd love to be able to see you. It's good to be able to put a face to a name. It allows for better interaction. I think typing in the chat window is one thing, but actually being able to see you is an entirely different feel. So if you can, please turn your video cameras on and please try to stay engaged. I would also suggest, I don't see the option to share my video. So if you, at the bottom left, there's two options. There's one for mute and there's one for video. I think you can click the arrow next to that and then you should be able to start video from there. So I'll keep going. Secondly, please keep your mics muted. We have over 20 people on this call, not including the speakers. So if you aren't speaking, then please, out of respect, let's try to keep our microphones muted while others are talking. Third, this workshop, we hope, or what we will try to do is to make it as interactive as possible. And what that means is we want you to feel comfortable asking questions that you wouldn't otherwise, feel comfortable asking others, right? So use this as an opportunity. There is no dumb question. As it says right here, this workshop is for you. So get all your questions answered and be better prepared and take advantage of this opportunity. We have very, very qualified speakers online that are ready to assist and to answer your questions as best as we can. And if there isn't something we can't help you with, then I'm sure that you can also follow up. So I encourage everyone, please use this opportunity. Okay. All right, so this is the agenda for today. We're going to go over our speaker's bio really quick. We'll have a few icebreaker sessions, as I mentioned previously. The purpose of this, or one of the ideas behind this, is to make it interactive and for you to try to get as much benefit from this as you can. We will, the speakers will discuss the learning objectives. We will talk about what is a resume, what are all the different parts of a resume that are critical. They will break that down for you. We will show you how to be able to speak to your organizational work, provide examples. Most of you must be familiar with LinkedIn. We'll show you how to create a proper or what kind of information to have on your LinkedIn profile. And then all of this, obviously we're in a situation where we're required to social distance, and these skills here in particular are for you to be able to build your profile while social distancing. So again, I hope you all benefit from this event. And Fatima, if you can go to the next slide, I'll meet the speakers. Our first speaker is Devyani Gauri, and she is a fourth-year artificial intelligence major at IIT with a minor in music. That's a really diverse background. I can appreciate that. My son is also a musician. She's a peer career coach at IIT, and so I'm sure there's plenty of experience she can help impart, or she can impart on the attendees here today. Fatima? Yes. Fatima is a technology consultant at West Monroe. She specializes in software engineering. She was also a peer career coach at IIT, where she graduated with a master's in computer science, a master's and a bachelor's in computer science, specializing in business. So again, I encourage you all, be interactive, be comfortable. Obviously we have 23 people on this webinar at the moment. So what we ask you all is to please ask your questions in the chat window, and to please keep your microphone on mute so that the speakers are able to speak without any interruption. So with that, I'll pass it on to our next speaker. Actually, before I do that, what do you hope to gain out of this workshop? That's a question for you all. What do you hope to learn and you to be able to use to improve your resume? So please type your answers into the chat window, and we'll go through them.
We'll give everyone 1 or 2 minutes before
Sure.
we move onward.
So don't be shy. I know. Okay, yeah, that's a good question. Are there any resume template websites you can recommend?
We definitely have one that we can showcase at the very end. The one that we were trained off of at Illinois Tech was on our career services website. So we can share that, and it's open to the public, and a lot of universities have left their resume workshops open to the public. Oh yeah, I saw that question on the question and answer. I think we can address it again while we go through. And so one of the questions that I found in the question and answer is, I'm planning to return to work after 7 years and have earned great experience in the last 7 years as a volunteer. While building my resume, how do I show my 7 years? My last paid job was in 2013. And so just to address this one really quick, we recommend people who have more than 5 years of experience to extend their resume to 2 pages. And so we'll show good tips to kind of how to phrase a lot of that experience. And we definitely recommend to include dates on that, so you can show to recruiters that you have a lot of experience. Someone else is looking for how to make a resume when you have no experience. We'll definitely show you how you can showcase, and you might have more experience than you think with volunteering. And just working at home, or even just doing side business or side certifications or classes online. I am a housewife and graduate and wants to do something by my own, so that would be a great opportunity to use this workshop to build your first resume. Okay, wow, we did quite a bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, Fatima, if because I think you have quite a bit to talk about already. If it's easier for you, I'll just I can read some of these questions, and that's fine. I believe that Sister Asma, if you can paste them into this chat window, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we paste them into this chat window, that's fine, and that will at least let the person know that we've received it, and then we can, if we can't answer it immediately during this presentation, we can always follow up and provide answers in due time.
Yeah.
What things?
Yeah, go ahead. We have a dedicated time for question and answer at the very end, so we can also.
Okay. Yeah, what things can you keep on resume? How much experience do you need before pasting it on? Yeah, I think these are the types of things that we will get into. Yeah. This is a time for me to figure out what I want to do to further my career, and the pandemic means a lot of what will be done online by connecting with family.
How do we include
We'll be going over our LinkedIn profiles later on so that we can show you the kinds of things you can put there. And also including volunteer work is definitely an important part.
Okay. These are all great questions.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think these are all really good questions, and I think a lot of this will be covered as we're moving through the slides. So we have these questions with us now. We'll keep moving forward. I believe I think Devyani is the next presenter, if you can. Fatima, go to the next slide, and then we'll start.
So it's actually icebreaker time.
Yes.
Right before we start presenting, we kind of want to know a little bit more about who you are and what you are doing right now. So we can start with what's your name, who you are, any information you want to share, and then what has been your favorite thing to do while social distancing? And while you guys answer this question in the chat window, we're all going to talk about ourselves a little bit so that you guys can get to know us a little bit better as well. So we're human beings to you and not just voices in the internet. So I can start if you guys want. So my name is Devyani. I'm one of the speakers. Who am I? I am a 21-year-old international student studying in the US. It's a great time. And I am actually studying at IIT, Illinois Tech in Chicago. So right now I'm studying artificial intelligence, like we said in the very beginning, and I'm also minoring in music. So my favorite thing to do while I've been social distancing is actually cooking. I liked cooking before, but I really love it now because I used to cook to eat before, but now I cook just for the experience of it. So I think that's something new that I've discovered about myself, that I can actually enjoy cooking. So yeah, that's about me. Fatima?
So my name is Fatima Azfar, and as mentioned before, I have graduated from university. It's been a full year. It's been a little bit over a year since I've graduated from Illinois Tech with a master's in computer science, a bachelor's in computer science. I currently work full-time as a technology consultant, and I specialize in software engineering. And so what my favorite thing has been to do during social distancing has definitely been to volunteer with young Muslims, with YM. I have the honor of being part of the national organization and the national team. And it almost feels like we have a lot more to do now that everything is virtual, because we can have more time to virtually interact with everyone nationally. And so I've been volunteering with them. I've been volunteering with ICNA Relief, as always. I've been helping out virtually and putting on webinars and other workshops. And so this is definitely not new to me, doing a virtual workshop like this. And so it's going to be really fun. I see quite a few answers already.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome Sumaya, welcome Najamanti, and then Hajra. It's awesome that we have so many people here.
Yeah, this is excellent. I see 27 participants so far. I'll tell you guys a little bit about me. My name is Saad Siddiqui. I graduated from UIC a long time ago. Since after graduating, I worked very briefly in software engineering, and then from there I went to work for a consulting company where I was involved in strategy, M&A, and from there I moved to Washington D.C. and while I was in Washington D.C., I started working for the government. I currently work for the Department of Veteran Affairs and sort of liaise between the VA, SSA, Social Security Administration, and also the Department of Defense. And so we have sort of like a program that operates between various agencies of the government. And I'm currently working remote from DC in Chicago. So it's good to be here, and I think this is an excellent workshop. Like I said, I listened to some of the slides already, and I've already benefited, and that's coming from somebody with over 17 years of work experience, and just seeing what is planning to be presented, I can see the benefit in it for the people participating. Mohammed just graduated with a bachelor's in computer science. Love to go on bike rides and play tennis. Me too. I love both of those things. Usman Qureshi, my background is in biology and I've been teaching a certificate. I enjoy taking my kids biking. Yep, I am on board with all of that.
It's definitely a wonderful pastime for quarantine time to go biking. I got rid of my bikes recently, or not recently, quite a few years ago, but yeah, maybe we should have kept them to go outside.
I know. Yeah, I think part of it is it's good to be at home, spending more time with family, and I have two children. I have a boy and a girl, and they're at home in the summer, so now I'm at home and I'm able to see what they're doing and how they're making the most of their time. And so they don't like that, but you know, I can take advantage of the moment, and it's good. I think it has its blessings.
For sure.
So
Let me go to the next slide. I don't think there's any more people adding, but if you are, feel free to just continue adding to the chat, and you can ask any questions in the question and answer. So here we go.
All right. Now we're going to actually begin our presentation, and we're going to start with the learning objectives of this presentation. We already went through the agenda, so we know what we're going to be talking about. But the learning objectives for this presentation is we don't have any expectation for anybody attending this presentation to already have a resume. We're going to go start from the very basics of our resume and go on to make it so that you can have a resume that's representative of any skills and talents you have that you want to market to somebody, so that it's marketable to employers or even anybody else who wants to take a look at your resume. We're going to talk about how you can make your resume clear, concise, and error-free. That's all on the slides, but we're going to be actually talking about our own personal experiences with resumes, because we weren't born with the skills to make a resume. We had to learn, and we've made mistakes. My first resume, I was very embarrassed about when I went to take it to the first career services review, and I was like, here, it's a piece of paper that has my name on it. No, I had more information, but it wasn't as good as it is now. But I've learned throughout the years, and I started working there. So I have learned a lot of things while talking to other people and discussing different kinds of resumes, I think. So our learning objective is to make it so that it's individualized to you, so that you like your resume and anybody looking at your resume can tell who you are as a person.
And so first off, we'll begin with a short video. It's creating a great resume, and there's no audio to this, so we can actually talk over it. But it's very, very short, and this is basically how employers look at your resume. So let me turn this on. I might have to click play here. And so there's no audio to this, but recruiters look at your resume, and you'll see how surprising it is a little bit.
I definitely found this video to be very informative the first time I saw it, because I was just, it was confusing at first.
6 seconds.
Yep.
So they look at the top header, they look at professional experience, some of the headings, your education and technical skills. So this is more of your name and any contact info.
Resume.
They're looking at your previous positions and dates.
Right. So that was just a short video. You can find these things online, but the reason why we have this workshop is so that we can talk to you guys and discuss what a resume means. We don't want to be throwing information at you. We want you guys to discuss it with us. What you're looking out of your resume, we've already seen a little bit in the chat by what you guys have said already. But we also want to see what you think a resume means before we start talking about what we think it means. So feel free to put that in the chat as well.
Yeah, and for me, I remember when my first resume, I still actually have it with me right now, and I was thinking that we can share it because it might give you some inspiration to see what a first resume might look like, and then what a resume after some of this training looks like. And so I've got that pulled up with me. I'll show it up at the end, and it's not pretty, honestly. I had all of those sections that are recommended, but it was over 1 page. Oh my God. And it wasn't formatted correctly, and all of the do's and don'ts that we'll go over. Yeah.
A distillation of your relevant experiences. I really like that. It's Very concise. I like that explanation of a resume, for sure.
And it's really good at relevant experiences. That's really important because not all of your experiences may be relevant to the position you're applying to. So the resume for that position might need to be tailored to just your relevant experiences.
Yeah, I like to think that resumes are a dynamic thing. So they're never static, they never stay the same. They're going to change from position to position, they're going to change from one year to another. So it's never going to be the same exact thing you show to people. It's always going to be a little bit different, a little more tweaked towards what you're applying to. And I think that's important because if you're sending the same exact resume for a software engineering position and also the same resume for a receptionist position, that might not match up with what they're looking for.
Yep.
That's
Concise
very
and
true.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on what Devyani said, speaking from personal experience, I think when I was first starting out, my resume, you when you're right out of college, you're applying to all of these different companies, and so you're sending the same body everywhere. But then I think as you progress in your career, you start to mold your resume to the job you want, and you may have to rewrite some of those bullets so that you re-articulate them so that they actually respond to some of the things that people are looking for, and I think it does play a hand. I've been on sort of both sides of that interview table, and I've interviewed people, and it's true. You're sort of, if you see a resume that the list of experiences aren't relevant to what you're looking for, you're going to put it to the side, and so it has to be relevant. It has to be specific.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Another person said a concise summary of your work experience and skills. And definitely it has to be brief and concise because people are only going to spend 6 seconds looking at your resume if you're sending it to recruiters. For work experience and skills, it may also be your academic background. It might also be your exams, any certifications you've taken, any hobbies. Some people actually put hobbies on there. I've seen resumes with like painting and skiing and biking written on there, and it's actually not always a bad thing to do. Definitely depends on which company and what position you're applying to, but a lot of companies do like putting things that don't relate exactly to the company, but may fit more in towards the culture of the company and showing that you are a good culture fit for that position.
Yeah. Right. So I guess we can move on and talk a little bit about what we think a resume should do. Yeah. So for me, a resume is a marketing tool. Thinking of yourself as a product is not a good thing. But if you think of yourself as something you want to market to somebody, you're gonna have to think about a few different kinds of things, right? So if you're applying to a position, any kind of position, doesn't have to be a job. It could be a volunteer position. Maybe they want to look at your resume. There's a few things you have to consider, right? Can you do the job? So do you have the skills to do the job? Will you do the job? So do you have the motivation, the correct kind of motivation to be able to do that job? And then fitting with the organization is really important for you and for them because they're not looking for a machine, right? They're looking for a human being to come work with them or for them, depending on what kind of job you're doing. But what you need to show in your resume is how you think you can market yourself. And I think that's why a resume can look like a fact sheet sometimes, but it should still be representative, should still be individualized so that people can know who you are as a person.
Yeah. And definitely you can use the job descriptions that you are applying to, the company's job descriptions, to cater your resume to that position. And so a really good way would be like, if you see that company is puts culture fit above a lot, you may put more cultural things or more of your like personal branding, hobby sort of things on your resume. But if you see a company doesn't put a lot of focus on culture fit, and they put a lot more focus on technical depth, and they will put a lot of focus on whether or not you are able to do the work, you may not feel it be appropriate to put a lot more hobbies or extracurriculars on your resume. So you got to cater your resume to the positions you apply to. And so this is just general formatting tips. Be sure to have a clear font, clear headers, 10 to 12 point font, 0.5 inch to 1 inch margins. And so the font itself, do not use Comic Sans. As peer career coaches, me and Devyani review resumes on a regular basis, and I'm no longer a career coach, but I still remember some of the resumes that I reviewed. And people did use Comic Sans. People made it very, very colorful, big font Comic Sans. And that was, they said, when we reviewed them afterwards, a lot of students came back and they said, this was to make the resume stand out from the other people. And that's a good goal to have, but that doesn't make your resume stand out in a good way. So make sure that your resume is clear font. We recommend Times New Roman or Calibri or Arial, something that's legible and almost like essay-like. So you're talking about your technical experiences and skills. It doesn't have to be gorgeous, but make sure it's readable. Make sure you have clear font. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. For formatting tips, another thing I remember now that you talked about the resumes we've looked at, there was one resume I saw one time which had yellow, blue, and green. Three different colors in one resume. And I told the person to pick one because yellow, blue, and green all together can be very distracting. We want the resume to be a clear representation of what they want to look for, right? So anybody who's reading through it should be able to find things easily. But if there's too many demarcations or too many distinctions between the colors, the fonts and stuff, that makes it very distracting. So try using the same font throughout the resume and try using, maybe pick one color and use just that color for whatever you're using in the resume.
And definitely when we share our example resumes, because I've got a few, I've used blue in my own, but we definitely recommend for your first resume, try to stick with black and white and maybe even like a little bit of gray, just to make sure that you at least get all the material down there, make sure that at least the material is good, and then start focusing on the layout and making it look nicer and look prettier. And use Google, just search minimal resume, search like graphic designer resumes and see what other people have done. But make sure you don't put any picture on your resume, because unfortunately in this world, people have bias against people. If you look at a picture, you're able to bias against how they look. And we want to make sure that the resume is a display of your technical skills. It's a display of your person and your experiences and your professional ability. And it should not be a display of what you look like. And that should not be a reason for declining or approving you as for a job candidate. Make sure your headers are clear and they're differentiable from the text. So you can actually go down your resume, you can see education section, you can see professional experience, and we'll list out which sections you need to have on your resume. Have a 1/2 inch to 1 inch margin. Don't make it too skinny, but don't make it too fat. You want to have enough space on your resume to include all of the things that you want to talk about. Use 1 full page for jobs. If you're going for industry jobs, we recommend to keep it to 1 page. 2 full pages for academia. Don't have like 1 page and just like another like 3rd page or another 1/4 page. If you're extending it over to 2 pages, go all the way down to 2 pages. And we recommend also that if you have less than 5 years of experience, it doesn't make sense for you to have longer than 1 full page at the job, because recruiters, it doesn't make sense for them to flip through your resume because they're only spending 6 seconds on it first off, unless you have more than 5 years of experience. And that means that they're looking for more than just that. Can you do the job, and are you teachable and learnable? And are you able to learn the experiences needed for that job?
I think that also speaks for volunteer experience as well.
Yeah.
I know we had a question about that. So if you have volunteer experience for 7 years, that's definitely something you can elaborate on, because you've probably learned a lot of skills while volunteering. You've probably led teams of people doing stuff. So we can talk a little bit more about that later as well.
And so definitely also make sure that your resume is error-free. 69% of employers will automatically eliminate a resume if they see a typo or spelling error. I see a couple of questions in the chat. I can address a few of them now. Najamanti mentioned that my resume is 4 pages due to more years of experience. Should I still bring it down to a 1-page resume? So that definitely depends on what positions you're applying to. If you're just sending your resume for a professional industry experience, I definitely recommend to make sure all of your experience is on your LinkedIn profile. But to cater and pick and choose which experiences you want to share on your resume and try to fit it to that 1 or 2 page limit. for Brother Shakur, will we have access to these slides after the webinar? I do believe that this presentation is being recorded, so you can go and flip through the recording later if you want to keep track of everything. But do take notes. It's just good to, I personally don't remember anything unless I've written it down. Even if I go back and watch the recording, I just have to take notes. So if you have anything that you see here that you want to keep a screenshot of or just take notes of, feel free. It's for you to use. Okay. So breaking it down, these are the sections that make up a basic resume. So there's the header section, the summary, the education section, the technical skills section, and the experience section. And I also want to pause here and let you guys know that the training that me and Devyani have is from Illinois Tech Career Services, which was meant for a lot of technical background students entering the job market. So though that's our background as a resume teachers, that's also kind of what we've learned to format a resume for, is for students just entering the job market. A lot of this is applicable to people of all ages and all career levels. If you're coming out of high school, we have some of our experience tailored to that as well. And so these are the main sections that we as people from Peer Career Coach from Illinois Institute of Technology recommend a basic resume should have.
All right, so we start a resume with the header. That's the first thing someone is going to look at. So it's kind of the most important part of the resume because it includes your name, and your name is what's defining you on the resume. So I always like to recommend having your name maybe one font size bigger or two font size bigger compared to the rest of your resume, because that's the first thing they're going to see. That's what you want them to remember. You want them to remember your name. So put it, some people like to put it in the very center. Like, obviously design is your own choice, but people can put it either left aligned or they can put it center aligned. That's all up to you. But right after your name, you should have some contact information. So these are things that they can go back to and contact you if you are a good fit for their job or any kind of experience again. So putting like your city, your state, and your zip code is a good thing, but do not put your entire address on there because we don't want any security issues. The reason why we recommend even putting your city, state, and zip code is because it tells them how far away you are from that job. If you're applying to somewhere that's a little bit farther away, I think it's good for them to know what it would entail if they do hire you. And then putting your phone number on there is always good because they can give you a call to discuss the resume. They can give you a call to give you an interview. And then putting on your email address. So for IIT students, I've always recommended putting your Hawk email ID because it stays with you forever. And then it's something that shows that you're part of a professional organization. So say you're part of a volunteer organization like Fatima is, you can put an email that represents that as well, because it shows that you're a little more professionally inclined than just having a personal email ID, unless that's the email ID you use for everything. So that's up to you. Another thing I recommend doing is putting your LinkedIn profile and your GitHub link if you are in the technical field. If you are in a CS related industry, put your GitHub link on there because your GitHub is going to consist of all of your projects. But then your LinkedIn can also serve as your social media plug on your resume, which I think is really great because they can just go on your resume, click on that link, especially if they're viewing it as a PDF. They can just click on that link and then go and look at a lot more things that you can put on your LinkedIn, because your resume is going to be 1, maybe 2 pages long. But since LinkedIn is like a social media, it's going to be something people can just scroll through to know more about you, more about things you've done, and again, to know what kind of a person you are.
For sure. And I just want to jump in here and let you know that some people who have online stores or Instagram profiles, they have put those links on their resumes as well. And I also like to put I have like a semi-professional Instagram. So make sure that everything on your resume is publicizable, if that makes sense. Make sure that you are comfortable putting it out there, because this is going to be going to the hands of recruiters. This is going to be the hands of random companies. And if it's on your LinkedIn profile, it's going to be public. And so make sure you consider that whatever you put on your resume is going to be something that you want your public image to be. So let me go to the next slide. And so the summary and objective. So this is an optional section, and if you have a summary, do not include an objective. If you have an objective, do not include a summary. My company actually prefers summary over objective. So if you're applying to West Monroe for any position, prefer a summary over an objective. And so what this entails is basically giving a brief introduction of you as a person, as well as what you're looking for. Introduce yourself, add your specialty, state your objective, and it should not be longer than 1 to 2 sentences. And so we have an example for a Bachelor of Chemical Engineering up there. So it's a Bachelor of Chemical Engineering major with a competence in recommended laboratory procedures and productive experience in collaborative projects. Specializing in petrochemical process engineering, seeking position as a process engineer with Acme Products Ltd. And so for me, I actually only have a single line, and I haven't labeled it as summary or objective. I just put it right underneath my name. And I have graphic designer and computer scientist because that is what defines me. That is what defines my career. I can go into either graphic designing or software engineering positions. And so that's all I have for my summary and objective section. And that's honestly all that I needed for my current position.
Right. Education section is probably one of the most important sections for most people making a resume, because when people are making a resume, they're usually looking for jobs. And the people I've dealt with obviously are people going out of college. So education has been the most important part of their life so far. Even if you're in high school, that definitely applies to you as well. So including any degrees or certifications that you had. So if you just look at the example here, we have Illinois Institute of Technology, Chicago, Illinois. They know where it is. They know the name of where you got your degree. Then Bachelor of Science, Aerospace Engineering. For me, that would be Bachelor of Science, Artificial Intelligence. So they know what you have studied there and to what degree. So like, do you have a master's in it? Do you have a bachelor's in it? If you're in a high school, then you can put your diploma there, right? And then GPA. Usually we recommend people put GPA as a 4.0 scale just because that's what people think of when they think of GPAs. But again, based on what you're applying for, that could change. And then you can put some like awards if you've had any awards. Like for IIT, we have a Dean's List, which is if you have a GPA of 3.6 or above, you get into the Dean's List. So you can put things like that. If you have something of an honor roll in your high school, you could put something like that. So your education section is supposed to represent you as a student, basically. And you can show that with awards. You can show that with your expected graduation date is important for sure, because that's something that tells them when they can hire you after looking at your resume. Yeah.
I also want to put in here, I don't think we have a section for this, but an optional section is called relevant courses. And that typically goes underneath your education section. And so if you have a lot of AP exams, which I did, my first resume had a bunch of AP exam names on there. And if you are a college student or just a fresh graduate, including all of the names of your relevant coursework that relates to your industry, is a really, really good way to get keywords onto your resume, especially if you are submitting online to any applications. The first thing a lot of companies do with like the 1,000,000 or 1,000 resumes they get for any online application is to run a keyword search. They literally look through your resume, and if you have a keyword or if you don't have a keyword, that's how they pick and choose your resume for a position. So if you have your relevant courses up there, they are a really, really good way to kind of just get industry keywords onto your resume. And so here is skills. And so I typically name this technical skills on my own resume just because I'm in the technology industry. You can also just name it skills. Technical skills, I feel like you can use it for any sort of thing. And so tips here is to include technical, computer programming languages, or scientific skills. Do not list transferable skills, personal qualities, or interests. So don't list things like super confident, self-empowered, or self-motivated. These things are what you should list off in your experience section. And these are the things that you should exhibit, like you have to show how you are this. You have to show the explanations for your professional experience. They're not things that you can just label and put into your technical skills section because they're not technical skills. So you don't put leadership qualities up there. Don't put communication. You just put skills that are relevant to your industry and are technical in nature. And only put things that you feel comfortable using at the job, not just nice to have. So if you are semi-okay at some languages, and I'm talking computer science talk now, we have different coding languages. And so if you are not comfortable in using a certain coding language in the industry or in the field, don't put that on your resume. You can maybe put like basic experience or dabbled with at the very end of your resume in extracurricular section, but don't put it in your technical skills section, because these are the skills that you'll be expected to use on a regular basis at your job. And so examples include programming languages. So we are computer science and background, so that's why we have that there. You can also put software, so MS Word, Excel, Google Drive, Prezi, which is a presentation software. You can put different tools that you are accustomed to using, Canva, which is a designing software for your graphic designer. Any sort of softwares that you learned or used, you can put those in there, and they look actually really cool. And I definitely recommend put things in like PowerPoint, MS PowerPoint. There are still people that don't really know MS PowerPoint and haven't used it. And so putting that on your resume shows that you have experience with the computer, that you have experience with creating decks and creating PowerPoint slides, and that is a very valuable experience to have. Put in languages, and so I know a lot of the people here are multilingual. Do not be scared in putting multiple languages on your resume. I have put Urdu on my own, and you can also put Hindi. You can put English, and it's like this. You can either put it like just put English, Urdu, you can list it off, or you could put it as a single. You can also list like how fluent you are in those languages. Another tip is for your technical skills section, don't bullet point it. Put each of these like software and then languages as a list, and then list off all of your technical skills with a comma separated list.
Right, so experience, this is the experience section, which is the most overwhelming section I've found for most people. So we're gonna go through it a little more in detail. The experience section does not always mean a job. It does not always mean a paid job either. So what experience means is some sort of a thing you've been involved in where you have had skills, used skills, and learned skills. That's how I like to think about it, at least. So it could be projects you've done in class. It doesn't have to be something you were paid for. You can put in academic projects. Maybe you worked in a team of like 4 or 5 people. You made a project. You made, say, a web page. That's a good project to show some people just because they know that if you ever need to use HTML, CSS, something like that, it's easy for you. Then you can put things like part-time jobs, internships, volunteer experience, all of that. But the way we format experience section is going to be important because it's going to be something that shows what you've done, but we don't want it to be too wordy. I've seen a lot of experience sections that are just paragraphs, and I have not been able to read through all of them. So the first thing to remember about any experience, listing any experience, is that it has to be concise. It has to show exactly what you've done with exactly these set of skills and with exactly this result. So we're going to explain that a little more in detail as well. So it should be 2 to 6 bulleted descriptions. Each bullet point should be maybe 1 line. Try not to take the bullet point into the second line. If it's going into the second line, it's probably too long. So definitely remember that you should not be using personal pronouns in an experience section because they do not want to know that I participated in a volunteer workshop. They want to know that presented to 30 people in a volunteer workshop organized by ICNA Relief, you know? So things like that. We're gonna elaborate that, more on that in the next few slides, but just some things to remember.
Yeah.
Go ahead for the sub.
No, I was going to say, yeah, there's a question here. Should you list each application within Microsoft Suite or just list it as Microsoft Office Suite?
Gotcha. I can actually talk to this a little bit. So this definitely goes to that catering your resume to the positions you apply to. If you have a lot already on your resume and you don't have enough room and you don't want to list off everything in the MS Office Suite and you feel comfortable using the entire thing, you can just put in Microsoft Office Suite. And if you're but if your employer puts on the job description that they're looking for someone who's specifically able to use MS PowerPoint, put MS PowerPoint on your resume. Don't put MS Office Suite. put exactly what they're looking for and make it easy for the recruiter to find that, because they don't have a lot of time that they're going to be spending searching for the things. And so you can list each application, or you can list MS Office Suite. Depends on which position you're applying to, depends on how much room you have on your resume, and depends on how technical you believe your recruiters will be. In terms of this slide, I also wanted to go into the no personal pronouns. Don't use I, he, me, she on your resume, just because this resume is already about you. Your name is on the very top of it, and it makes it sound more professional and formal if you list things off without using the I, me, she pronouns. And so definitely make sure to have all of your specific and concise experiences on your resume, but try to use more of that professional, formal, developed computer science application, or conducted interview at so-and-so organization. Should use those action verbs, and we'll go into those a little bit more. So next slide. And these are the transferable skills that we definitely recommend to embed into your experience section. So the leadership, teamwork, initiative, time management, communication skills, organization, attention to details. These are all those skills that we recommended not to include in your technical skill section, but to include in the explanations to your experience.
Also, definitely don't put the words just as they are. There are also definitely more like synonyms that you can use that show the same things, but sound fancier, to be very honest. So if you've done something like teamwork, or led a team of, say, 6 people in making a presentation for something, you can probably put that in your experience section and make it sound a lot more professional and something that your employers can use. So make sure that your skills are not just words in your resume. Make sure that they actually represent something. So say initiative, took initiative and created an entire, say, Google Drive folder for a volunteer organization and transferred everything from offline to online for them. So that's showing initiative as well, right? So it's not something that necessarily would be something people would come up with, but if it's an actual thing you've done, then it's something that you can put on your resume.
Okay, let me go to the next slide here. And so this is the experience section. We recommend to use the PARS method to come up with the explanations to your experience. So the PARS method is, so the P stands for what problem did you address, A stands for what actions you took, R stands for what results you saw through those actions that you took, and then S is what skills did you use or develop. And so use really strong verbs, use quantitative evidence. And so we really, really want recruiters who are looking on your resume to make sure that they know exactly what problems you've been able to overcome, and if there are similar problems in their organization, how you would be valuable to fix those problems, what actions you took. So if they've already been doing some actions to solve some problems, how you can add to that. What were the results that you have come up with, and do they want to see similar results in their organization? And then what skills did you use or develop? Do they have that need for those skills? And so this is exactly one-to-one how employers will look at your resume and these sections and kind of see what they get out of that. Use quantitative evidence. So if you say that you were teaching a certain amount of students something, show the number of students. And so if you were, say, teaching, if you were a math tutor for something, you could be like, hey, so you would say taught 20 students computer science, calculus, math. I don't really think that's a real math, but if that was a math, that's how you would list it off. And so this is an example before and after. Volunteered at a food pantry, and the after is participated in the national social media campaign for ICNA Relief and managed to increase donations by X% from last year. So this is taking directly from me and my own how I phrase things. So I have volunteered at ICNA Relief food pantry, but I've done a lot more for ICNA Relief, and I don't want to just say that I've volunteered. I want to say more about what exactly I did for that organization. And so another way that I volunteered or participated in ICNA Relief is collaborated in a diverse team of 10 people and successfully managed requirement gathering. This is still a little bit vague, so I honestly would fix this managed requirement gathering to talk about exactly what came out of that experience.
Yep. I think it's very important to use strong verbs because those can also be part of those keywords that they're looking for. So if you're applying to a job, the first thing I recommend before you start listing your experience is going to their website and looking for their values and their like mission statement. It doesn't have to be for a company either. Again, it can be also for the volunteer organizations that you might be applying to. So if you look at what kinds of skills they're looking for, other than just technical skills, you can find that in their company culture or their volunteer organization culture. So the kind of initiatives they're looking for, and if you feel like you're a good fit for those, then you would want to include those kinds of action verbs in your experience to show that, again, since you're making your resume to be catered towards the specific position, you're trying to show them that you would be a good fit for the organization as well.
Yep. And so I think this is the end of our 4 sections that we have recommended a basic resume to have. We definitely recommend that you can include more. There's academic projects that we would recommend for anyone who's in a technical student or technical industry. If you have just graduated university, include your academic projects. If you are a chemical engineer, a bioengineer, a bio major, a doctor, honestly, if you've got projects or capstone projects that relate to your industry, include them in an academic project section. If you are another section that's really good and valuable aside from that and relevant courses is also extracurricular and leadership activities, leadership experience. So if you have any volunteer experience or something that doesn't fit directly into this professional experience section, you can also include a leadership or extracurricular section. So this is the question that we would like for you all to answer. What is one thing you need to change on or add to your resume now that you've kind of seen this basic steps? And if you don't already have a resume, you can just list off one thing you've learned. Yeah. We'll give everyone 1 to 2 minutes to think about that. And I can think, oh, the PARS method is really good. I can also go through there's another method that we are taught. It's similar to PARS, it's STARS, it's easier to remember. It's exactly the same. It's situation, task, action, result. That's the STARS method. And so that is something that is really, really easy and able to use to kind of frame your experience section too.
Yep, I agree. And also, I feel like every single time I look at my resume, I see at least one thing I need to change because I'm just like, why did I put that there? You know, so keep looking at your resume as often as you can so that you keep making it, again, like we said, it's a dynamic thing. So keep changing it up based on how you change, I guess, because you're always growing.
Yeah, some folks are saying they want to reformat their sections, add specific quality skills, which are related to leadership, innovation, etc. Changing the work experience from long sentences to short bullet points, using a larger font size. Someone actually asked how many pages a resume should be. So we covered this a little bit in the beginning, but a resume should be 1 page if it's your first resume or if you're right out of college and have less than 5 years of experience. If you have a little bit more than 5 years of experience, you can extend that to 2, but sticking to 1 is a good idea. If you're going into academia, you can also go 2 full pages.
Yeah. One of the things I think I benefited from personally is don't shy away from listing any volunteer experience that you've had that you think might be relevant or of benefit to a specific role that you're trying to apply for. I think there's a lot of things that you're able to do in the volunteer world, like host meetings or, participate in things like this that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do, in a working environment. And employers look for that. They want people who are personable, who can speak, and and who can do some of these things, organize these things. So it's valid and it helps. That's something that I learned.
Absolutely.
That's very relevant. Yeah. Let me answer one of these questions while we still get a few more people to put in their answers. Someone asked, I have around 7 professional work experiences. Is 3 pages per resume too long? And so 3 pages is a little bit too long. Again, definitely cater your resume to positions you're applying to. What you can do, and what I've done, is I have actually listed, so if you've got multiple professional experiences for the same company, you can list off all of the positions you've had, and don't put any explanation under them except for the final one. And then you can put explanation under the most recent one, basically. Another thing that we forgot to mention is make sure your resume is in reverse chronological order. So all of your professional experiences need to be listed in reverse chronological. The most recent should be first, because your employers all want to know what you've done recently, and then read through what you've done later. So make sure that your resume is in that order.
I can take another question as well. So there's a question that says, I have almost 25 years of experience on various projects across firms. How do I limit my resume to 2 to 3 pages? So based on what you're looking to send this resume for, I think, again, like Fatima said, focus on catering the resume to just those experiences or to just that kind of a job. You can mention something diverse that you've done to show that you stand out from other people. But I would say you can put all of this experience on your LinkedIn profile, because that's kind of like a more interactive resume. And we could talk about this more when we show our own LinkedIn profiles to you guys. But I think it's a good thing to put it in there because it's like a social media. So people are going to scroll through to know more about you. So they're going to read that a lot more than they read your resume. So your resume should have enough information that you can start a conversation about it, but it shouldn't have paragraphs of information about the same thing.
I'm getting a little bit of sunlight through my window, so my face might suddenly fade away. Let me also address one or two of these questions before we move on. Can I put leadership and volunteer experiences in your work experience? Absolutely, yes, you can. It definitely depends on which experience you're talking about. So if you had a volunteer experience in which you'd worked on a project for over the span of, say, a month or so, you can put that in as an unpaid position, as a volunteer position. You can put leadership positions in your work experience section as well. But I also like to put in a separate leadership experience or an extracurricular section on my resume, so that I can pull those out of my professional experience section, because it doesn't always relate one-to-one, but it can. It depends on how you phrase it, how extensive it was, how long it spanned for, what kind of projects you worked within that position. And you can exclude, if you have your volunteer experience as your first experience, you can include it as a first experience. Or if you want to separate it out from your professional experience, you can create a separate section labeled extracurricular or leadership experience and put it there. And I'll be showing my own resume so you can see how I've laid out everything when we're showing our LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I've also found that resumes are good like conversation starters. So I have been to career fairs at IIT, and I've had people just notice my resume and be like, wait, you have a lot of communication experience, just because in all of my jobs I've had so far, I've had to present to people, I've talked to people, I've always had that kind of communication shown through my bullet points in all of my experiences. So that's something that even I didn't think of before I talked to that person at the career fair, where he was like, wait, it seems like you've talked to a lot of people throughout these years. And I was seems like it. So it's definitely something that shows a part of your personality as well.
Yeah. I remember during my career fair experiences, I made my resume very graphic design, and I think I've mentioned this. I made it blue, and I've got a 2-column format. And so one of my career fairs, I accidentally left cardstock in the printer, and so my resume was a very like cardboardy. It seemed very, very like fancy, and it stood out from all of the other resumes. So it was a nice thing, but it was really funny because all of the recruiters, the first thing they would say is, "This is a very nice looking resume," and that was like, it was a nice thing to hear. But I also wanted them to kind of look at the experiences and come out with like something to talk about my like technical experiences and some of the coursework I put on there. But they all really, really loved how it looked, so it was funny. Okay. So let's move on. I wanted to go through briefly speaking to your experience. And so this was one of the sections that I keep referring to, in which you can speak to your volunteering experience. You can speak to any experience, honestly, that you've had that's related to the industry and field you're going into. If you are going into an industry which like puts a lot of favor on communication skills, on speech skills, on self-confidence, put on your Toastmasters experience. Toastmasters, if you don't know already, is basically a speech club that's held in a lot of libraries and masjids. We have one in Islamic Center of Wheaton, which is nearby to me. And so there's an ICW Toastmasters, and so put that onto your resume. If you've talked, so I've also shown befores and afters on how you can phrase that. So if you say that you're just a member of YM, that doesn't really explain much. It doesn't show how you have helped with organizational work. It hasn't showed how this organization is a national org. If you're showing experiences that people may not know about, definitely put a lot more explanation into that. So I've put member of YM before. The afters participated in organizing meetings for the largest Muslim American youth organization, YM. So join Toastmasters turns into develop speech skills and charisma as a committed weekly member of the ICW's Toastmasters team. The third one is talked with a chemical engineer. So if you do like talk with someone, and if you want to put that onto your resume, and if it was like a formal experience in which you had to go and like you attended a workshop where you talked to people, you can talk about that with like this phrasing: developed understanding of the day in the life of a chemical engineer in XYZ company. And I would definitely include the workshop name that you went into. So I would say in XYZ workshop.
Right. So things to do over the summer. For a lot of people I know right now, since we are social distancing, quarantining, and taking care of ourselves, there are a few things that you could do to add to your resume. If you don't have a resume yet, this could be your starting point for the resume. So a few of the things that I know I've done in the past and I would recommend people do is take a free online course. On Coursera, you can take courses for free. If you do want to have the certification from it, then you can pay them and audit that course to get that, but you don't really have to. It can also be just a skill building exercise for yourself. So you can take free courses there on Coursera, edX, there's so many platforms. If you ever need recommendations, just hit me up, I can tell you. And then there's a lot of YouTube videos about making projects on a weekend. So based on whatever you're doing. So for example, if I'm looking at artificial intelligence, data science stuff, I would go look up ideas for projects that you can do in a day. Something like that. So it's a small project, but it's something that you make from start to finish. So it shows that you have enough dedication to be able to be able to start a project, to make it and have it completed. It could be any kind of project. It doesn't really have to necessarily be related to your industry, but if it is, then it's a bonus. Register for free virtual workshops like the one you did here. So right now you're building a skill. You're learning how to make a resume. That's a good skill to have. And then explore different fields. I think when you're trying to either go into a new industry or if you're trying to do a career change, it's always good to have some research done about that. Since we have a lot of time right now, I would say go into blog posts or go into YouTube videos just to search for what a day in the life of somebody would look like. If you want to see what a day in the life of an engineer looks like, a specific kind of engineer looks like, or what a teacher does. Most of the people know what a teacher does because they've seen them and been taught by them, but just what does it look like from their perspective? So things like that can help you understand the kinds of things you might want to do in the future, or maybe you have some skills and you want to apply them to a specific kind of job. This can help you understand how you could do that as well. Right now, I know since we're all virtual, there's a lot of virtual challenges being hosted by Harvard, MIT. I know there was a challenge called Beat the Pandemic, and this was not specifically a CS hackathon either. It was just people going in and designing solutions for problems that everybody was facing. So it shows that you can take initiative about things like COVID that's happening right now. It's a very real thing, and everybody is affected by it. So those kinds of things definitely you can put on your resume later on as an experience as well.
I also recommend here things to do over the summer that are not listed here. Volunteer experience is awesome on your resume. So ICNA Relief still needs help with their food pantry and other areas like this workshop. I'll definitely, if I get a chance to fix up my resume a little bit more, I have my 2019 resume up on my LinkedIn. And so I have to update that, and I would add this workshop on that. And you can also add this as just an attendee, as a member of this workshop. You can show that you have interest in developing your career by adding this to your LinkedIn or your resume. I would also recommend to include any sort of like if you are having any like business on the side, if you are selling stuff, you can, and you have a name for that business, you can put that on your resume, even if it's a self-run and you're not getting a lot of money out of it. One of the questions here is, what if you're learning Python from YouTube, but there's no certification at the end? Can you still add that to your technical skills? Yes. So your technical skills section does not relate one-to-one to your academic and what you've learned hands-on in your experience sections. You can include additional skills that you've learned on the side without any certification. But you definitely have to be able to kind of back that up once you are in that interview and once you are actually at that job. You have to be able to show that you know those coding skills. And in a lot of technical skills, a lot of computer science jobs, what they do is they have a whiteboarding interview where they actually ask you to code out some answers to some sort of question, and that shows them that you are true and accurate in your experiences on your resume. Let me go to the next slide, and now we will be going through our LinkedIn profiles, and I'll be showing off my resumes as examples. Let me actually just show my resumes first, and then we can go into my resume, or into my LinkedIn profile. So this was my very first resume, and please no judgment. This was the resume that I used to apply to the peer career coach position, if you can believe it. And I actually got that position through networking. I honestly don't believe that I would have gotten that position through any sort of, any sort of, like just through this resume, because it's not pretty, it's not good, and it's 2 pages, which is over what we just told you to do, and I should not have done that. And so I made this in MS Word. So there's my name, there's my contact information. This is my old address, so that's why I'm fine with sharing that because it's no longer my current address. This is what objective I had: education, academic achievements, experience, computer experience, graphic designing experience, and activities. And so I was able to review this a lot with career coaches that were in career services. And so my next resume, I don't really want to show this more any longer. It's not nice. This was my next resume. And so let me show you my 2018 resume. And so I actually have 2 versions in 2018. And so this one, it's got this blue top background, which is what a lot of recruiters looked at it initially. There's the professional experience section, there's the education section, these are my contact information, there's my relevant courses, this is organizations, technical skills, extracurricular activities, and so this is where I put a lot of my volunteer experience, academic projects, and so this is where I had any classes and work here. And then I also had this quote from actually the Quran. This is an ayah in the Quran. We have made you into nations and tribes that you may know one another. And so I just put that in there to be fun. And so I use this resume to apply to my current position that I have. I have to use this resume to apply it for an internship at West Monroe Partners, and I actually got in, which was really, really awesome. And they put a lot of focus in extracurriculars. They really loved anyone who did any sort of volunteering thing. They love student organizations. So I put ACMW in here, somewhere right here, 2018 president of Illinois Tech ACMW, marketing chair of Illinois Tech MSA, and then GHYMS, which is Glendale Heights Hawaiian Sisters. I was the NeighborNet coordinator back in 2018. And so they loved it at my office, and this was actually something that they focused on a lot, was anyone who was doing stuff outside of their academic experience was a good cultural fit for their company. So then my 2019 resume, or actually this is my other 2018 resume. So someone actually recommended me for a couple other positions I was applying to as an intern, that they thought that this resume was too cramped and it was too designy. It was not business enough like for some of the positions I was applying to. And so I made this one to be more business-like. And so this is a single column format. There's the education section, skills, professional experience, academic projects, and organizations. This resume actually did not get me any positions. I applied to a couple places with this resume, but I didn't get anything out of it. But I still have this relevant courses, and I list off the languages that I learned in those relevant courses. I have academic achievements, my technical skills, and you can see here I no longer have my high school experience on this resume, just because I was close to graduating from university. And so after your first year in university, do not include any of your high school experience because it's no longer relevant to any positions that you're applying to. Your university experience is more valuable there. Technical skills, and So that's technical skills and professional experience. And I do say that don't include your high school experience if you are in university after your first year in university. But if you don't have any experience outside of your high school life, feel free to include that even beyond university life. So if you have, if you did something really, really awesome in high school as well, you can keep that there. So if you were an AP Scholar with distinction, see, I did include AP Scholar with distinction, even though that was something that happened in high school. And so that is my resume. If anyone wants to look at it even longer, I actually have my current resume up on my LinkedIn profile. So let me actually go in there. And so this is my LinkedIn. And so for those of you who do not know what LinkedIn is a social media site for professionals and for people who are looking for careers. And so if you don't already have a LinkedIn, make one. Even if you're in high school, even if you're in college, even if you don't really are looking for a job right now, make a LinkedIn just because it's valuable to have. It's useful if you're going in any sort of technical career, or even if it's a non-technical. I know there's a lot of medical, I feel like there's a lot of doctors on here. There's a lot of teachers on here, but this is very, very valuable if you are going into a technical position as well. And so this is what I see on my LinkedIn. And so there's me. This is my header, basically what I mentioned as my summary. And then I have an about section, which kind of shows about who I am as a person. There's the resume and featured documents that you can include. So I have a quick portfolio of my graphic design materials, and then my current resume in case anyone is looking to hire me for something. I'm not currently looking for new positions, and I think LinkedIn shows that to recruiters, but this is just good to have. And so there's my graphic designer and computer scientist. That is the only summary and objective that I have on my resume. There's professional experience. Again, I have a lot more. And then I haven't put anything under my technology consultant position just because it is under West Monroe Partners. And so it's the same experience right now for what I've had as an intern. There's ACNW Lounge Scholar, Career Coach, and so these were two on-campus positions, actually 3 on-campus positions I had. There's graphic designer for self-employed, so this is all of the volunteer experience I did. I actually didn't make much money at all in this section, but I did put this here anyway, just because that's what I was doing for a year. There's academic projects that I still have up there, education, relevant courses, organizations, technical skills, extracurricular activities, and then so I put conferences in here, and I've put also a couple of workshops that I've attended. I think We Code at 2018 at Harvard University was a conference / workshop, so I had that there too. And then I still have that phrase, "We have made you into nations and tribes that you may know one another," at the bottom of my resume, and it's just something that I put there to be fun and to kind of show that I have a lot of focus in working in a lot of diverse areas. And so that is my resume. We can go back to it at any moment. And we can also move on to Devyani's LinkedIn profile, because I believe we have around 15 minutes left in this workshop, and we still wanted to have some time for a Q&A. So let me actually go to Devyani's LinkedIn, and we can talk through more of the sections there.
Right, so on my LinkedIn, I have mentioned that I'm an NSF-RU intern. Right now I'm doing research with Illinois Tech in their Scalable Computing Lab, which actually is not completely related to AI, but it's related to data science, the work I'm doing. So I like putting things that I'm doing currently on the top of my LinkedIn profile because people might want to know what I'm doing right now. And so what my LinkedIn shows, I don't have an about section yet. I should have one, and I've been telling myself for a year that I should have one, but I still haven't been able to figure out how to word it correctly. So soon. But my LinkedIn definitely shows a lot more stuff than my resume does. In the featured section, you can see that there are a few articles. The first article is one I actually did for Chicago Sun-Times. They interviewed me because I changed my major to AI, and the AI major had just been very recently introduced in our college. So I don't like that picture, but the article itself was nice. It was fun talking to somebody about my passion about AI and why I like it. So my LinkedIn profile shows a lot more of who I am as a person. It shows what I'm passionate about, the kinds of skills I have. I put singing on there. I know people might not like that, but I actually feel like singing is a part of me. So I like putting that there. And interestingly enough, a lot more people endorse me for singing than for any of my programming languages. It's just a funny thing that it's like twice the number of people who know that I sing rather than people who know that I code. But that's just me. But I have put all of my work experiences here, all my projects here, who I did the projects with, and I'm connected to those people on LinkedIn as well. So whenever I look at projects, you can actually see who I did those projects with. So you can actually tell, you can click on their profiles and see who I did this project with. So David and Wright, we made a project for database class. So you can go there and see who they are. I think it makes it a lot more interactive and a lot more personal for anybody who's reading through this. And I also put links to the projects. So you can go to GitHub, you can actually look at the project, stuff like that. So I think it's a lot more interactive than a simple one-page resume. And that's why I think LinkedIn is a lot more important. Definitely having a resume is your fact sheet, but the LinkedIn is the social media where you can market yourself even more and in a lot more ways. So I would say explore LinkedIn, just so you can know what kinds of things you can do with it, because I've put my volunteer experience there, all my organizations I've been a part of. I've been in the exec board of ACMW for marketing before. I've done work with other organizations on campus as well. So putting all of that in shows what you have done so far. All my online courses from Coursera are here as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can put on LinkedIn, and I'd say it's a good time to use it right now since everything is online anyway.
Yep. I 100% agree, and I can actually just go back to my LinkedIn to talk through a little bit more of what I was going to talk about. And so I have this about section, there's the featured documents. And so this dashboard is really valuable in that LinkedIn actually tells you kind of what to do to get to an all-star profile. So things like adding your summary, things like adding documents in your resume, filling out certain sections. And so the LinkedIn also is really, really useful in kind of framing your resume. So we listed like basic sections for your resume, and they kind of one-to-one relate to LinkedIn. So this is the experience section, and so you can see that I have a lot more paragraphs here. And so I would turn this into more of a bullet point format for my resume, and this would go in my professional experience section on my resume. I have this other organization stuff, student orgs in here as well. And so there's also this education section, and then there's a volunteer experience section. And so you can literally create your resume off of LinkedIn. And so a lot of the times when I recommend people to write a resume, I'll also recommend them to create a LinkedIn. And so as you're trying to frame out your experiences, as you're trying to talk about yourself, fill out your entire LinkedIn profile, and then you can use that to develop your resume. And so there's also skills and endorsement section, and so you can add in more skills that you believe that you have. You may or may not get endorsed for all of this. I don't have a lot of endorsements, so please endorse me for things. But they're really good, and you can ask people to endorse you as well. It's a really good thing to do, to talk with project managers and any managers you've had and ask them to endorse you before you leave a position. There's industry knowledge, there's accomplishments, and so the accomplishments, you can include your relevant courses section here, honors and awards, organizations, languages, projects, and test scores. And I really love, Devyani, how you wrote your projects. I actually don't believe, I've had Shanti for making a Relief thing, but I don't have a lot of people in my project section. I think that would be really good to have, to add my other classmates in here.
Yeah, I think it shows like association with people that and they're real people, so you can just connect to them, you know?
Yep. And I definitely recommend for everyone to use this time to network with people and do coffee chats with people. That's a trend we have at my company, is to have this culture of coffee chats. What you do is you reach out to someone random and you ask them if they would be willing to have a chat with you for just 30 minutes. And then you just talk to them and you develop a relationship with them. And so what you can do on resume is, or on LinkedIn, is you can go and find your alma maters. You can find your school and then find people who went to your school. And then if you're looking for a job in a new company, you can actually find out which students from your college, university, or your high school went to that company, and you can reach out to them to have a coffee chat and build that personal relationship and network with them to eventually get that personal referral. Because in this day and age, 80% of people get jobs through personal referrals. They don't get it through cold throwing the resume into company recruiting sites. They get it through knowing a recruiter and knowing someone in that company, knowing a manager, knowing somebody who will recommend you to the recruiter. And so I definitely recommend to use this as a social networking site. Use this and be active on it. Write articles on LinkedIn. I can actually show my posts. I have different posts, and I actually put this workshop as one of my posts. And so this is the first one that'll show up because that was the most recent one. And so with that, let me go back to the slides and go to the next slide here. And so, Brother Sal, take it away.
Yes. So we have a few more minutes. Let's see if there's any new questions that are still that we haven't answered yet.
Yeah.
So this last one. Yeah. What if your volunteer work does not have a title given to you? Can you make up a title for those?
So I would definitely, you can put just volunteer on top of those. If you have a position that didn't have an official position title and there's not one that naturally comes to it, you can just put volunteer.
You can say the name of the organization and then volunteer.
Yeah, ICNA Relief volunteer. Yeah, that's a good way.
Yeah.
Another question is there an email address that you guys can share so that I can send you my resume and receive feedback? Yes. So we will be reviewing resumes with our experience as career coaches. I believe there's a Google form going to be sent out where you can submit that directly there. So we will not be giving an email here, but we will be having a Google form that goes out later.
Okay. Are there any other questions that you guys have? We'll open it up to questions. You guys can type it out in the chat window.
While you guys are typing that up, I can talk about something that I think is the best advice someone has given to me, which was to have a master resume and then use it to make your resume that you want to cater to people or cater to a specific position. And I think LinkedIn is really good for that. So LinkedIn can act as your master resume. And then you pick and choose what things you want to put in for any kind of position, and then actually use those in your resume. So like Fatima said, use your LinkedIn as a basis for your resume, or use your resume as a basis for your LinkedIn. When you're making your resume for the first time, I'd say put everything from your resume into your LinkedIn and then add on to that.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. One of the questions, I can actually read this one. What's the best way to send your resume? PDF, Word, or Google Doc? Definitely recommend PDF. Just because we don't want people to edit your resume, and you don't want it to be, and PDF is just a really, really good format in which you can just go through it. It's not editable, easy to see, and the fonts transition over pretty well.
Personal experience as well. If you're using a font that's not the conventional name, but it's still professional, if you're using a font like that, if you have it as not a PDF, it will not convert to that font for other people. So using it as a PDF definitely makes sure that your format stays consistent throughout your resume, and it's easier for them to look at as well.
All right. Are there any other questions?
Someone has asked, where would you put hobbies on the resume? I'd say you can put them right after your experience section is done. I would say either after your skills section or after your experience section, somewhere towards the end, after you've put in everything that's more relevant to the job experience. But that's my opinion.
One question that I think is really good is how can we find action verbs for bullet points? And so we've recommended to use strong action verbs. And I just wanted to show you this resource. It's the Illinois Tech Career Services website. And I believe a lot of universities have the career websites open. And so if you just go to Illinois Tech Career Services, and you can actually find this, you can Google it, career services-resources. There's a couple of resume formats on this, as well as a LinkedIn profile checklist. If you're just building out a LinkedIn, there's a good example there. And there's in the resume guide, the career services resume guide, there is a verb list at the very end of it. Oh, this is a new format. They changed it. That's awesome. So this is the action verbs for resumes. And so reorganized, recommended, inspected, instituted, these are really good sources for strong verbs.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can share that. Actually, can you just paste that URL, Fatima, into the chat? I think people can maybe just grab it.
Sure. There's a bunch of good resources in this career site, so I'll just send it here, the entire career services resource site. Yeah.
So there's another question about mentioning legal status. I think it's useful, as far as I've seen so far, it's not recommended to put on your resume specifically. I've also seen another thing that people put is references available if required. I don't think you have to mention that on your resume or your references, because if they want references, they'll just ask you for them.
Yep. We have 1 minute left, so inshallah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to first and foremost thank the speakers, Devyani Gauri and Fatima Azfar. I think you guys did a tremendous job. I also want to thank ICNA Relief. This is one of many projects that ICNA Relief offers this webinar. I think it was very insightful and very beneficial. And for somebody coming with, coming from a perspective of an outdated resume, I definitely picked up a lot of good information that I'll use. And for a LinkedIn profile that's really just 40% complete, I think it's something that I have to work on. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to all the participants who joined. I'm glad you guys attended. You were very, you're active in your participation. So I appreciate all that. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. And you can also reach out to us via LinkedIn. My profile is public, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to DM me.
You can send us the resumes via the Google form if you want us to look at them.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.